Hey everyone. We're going to jump in right away with a lot of the work that we've been doing on the back end and getting a blog up and running. So the last video we troubleshooted a lot. We got a lot done, a lot through the a lot of the trouble that we were facing. We were able to just figure out really easily. So I'm really happy with how things are coming along right now, and we have a long way to go. Because what we have right now is we have a blog that's up and running in the back end, so like we can see that we have information, but we don't have anything on the front end. And so if I go over here, I already spun up my local host, but if I go to blog, I have just hello. That's not really helpful. But even beyond that, if I have a blog post named hello, we're not going to see anything because that slug does not exist. In fact, no slug exists. So we're going to go to blog, go to slug, and it's all just all this commented out stuff. And so that needs to change. So what we're going to do is we're going to get started on that. So I do have some of this from an old project that we're going to work with. And we're going to start down here with our, this should be blog. So I'm just going to take all of this commented out code, which is a lot of commented out code. And we're going to come, geez, this is a lot. We're going to simplify a lot of this. So let's go ahead and uncomment that. And honestly, I don't know why I'm doing it this way. What we should just do, start from scratch. So we have a little bit of an example already from our homepage. So if we come up here, we know some of the things that we're going to need. And actually, there is a couple pieces of code that I want to keep in here. So first is this query message, because this is from payload. I want to make sure that I can keep this because it's going to really help us with caching down the line. So we're going to have query blog. We'll reinstate that here in a second. Result. So get payload is now the preferred way of doing this. So I will make sure that we have that in there, and then we should have, I think it's posts. All right, so a couple things back up to the top, because we do have some of these. We'll keep our classes. We're going to take out all of these schema, because that's not important right now. We'll keep link because we'll probably need it. We'll get rid of this. We'll keep metadata because we'll eventually need it. We'll need to get payload and where. We need the config promise. I don't know why this, duplicate identifier. So I must have imported that somewhere else. We're going to leave it up there though. Config, we'll leave metadata for now. We don't need breadcrumbs. We don't need any of these containers. We don't need dates. I'm going to leave the date, and I'll show you why here in a second. Get rid of those. Card container, we won't need. Don't need any of these. We'll keep serialized lexical because we have content. Don't need anything for nav. Let's keep the date going. Don't need that. Format date we want to keep, because I have my own utility function for that. Don't need anything here. Don't need that. We need cache, so we'll leave that in. We need draft mode. We'll leave global setting because we'll eventually need it. And then this should, I believe, just be this now. Get cached global we'll leave, and then redirects we'll leave as well. So now we can delete our generate static params because we'll want to create that ourselves when we get there. We're going to leave this type of props because we're going to need it in a second anyway. I'll explain it when we get there. We'll need our global settings. I think. Did I get rid of the... No, I think we brought this into a function. So we're going to get rid of that. And then we have our generate metadata, which we will also get rid of all of that. So really the only thing I wanted to keep was all the way down here with our this is all the way down here. I don't need that. So we have is enabled. Figure that out in a second, because I think this is coming from something else. Cache. Cache is not what we need. I'll figure that out later. We'll just comment this out. So we don't really need draft mode, so we're just going to comment it out for now. All right, so we'll start here. What this is doing is we are going to query our blog and wrap it in cache. So this will allow us to make sure that we are keeping things fresh. So if we have a piece of content that doesn't need to be updated, this here will keep the blog in the cache. And so while it's in the cache, nothing will happen to it. I'm not going to set a revalidate time because we're going to use on-demand revalidation for this. And so that's done by setting a trigger on, or a hook rather, on the backend. So we'll do that later, or we'll confirm that it's done in our payload backend in a little bit. But for now, what this is just going to do is it's going to query our post, which I just put in here, and it's going to query the blog for us on the front end, and that's really about it. We'll wrap it in cache later on, but now we can get rid of all of this junk that I had from a previous project, and we're going to export default function blog. So export default function. We will take the params, but we're going to call this blog. And so now we're then going to use our const blog is equal to query blog, and we'll do our params. And so before we do that, we're actually going to log what our params are doing. So I'm just going to hit log and then do params. So when I do this and refresh, we should be able to see in our log here that we have this long list of params. And what we want is the slug. So I know that this is what we're looking for, but you can see here that we do have a blank slate now when I type in hello instead of a warning. That's because we have something coming back to the front end and communicating between the front end and the back end. So we're going to query the params.slug, and since this blog does not actually exist, I gotta look at this right here real quick, because this does not equal a where. So if I do slug, which will then be equals. Here, I have a better idea. So I try to get a little fancy over here, but what we'll end up doing instead is just setting where slug. Slug equals slug. I did that wrong again. There we go. So now it'll be expecting a string instead. Or at least it should be. I don't know why it's not. But then we're just going to return, well, let's log blog instead, and we'll see what's going on here when it hits the log as well. So first we need to see what our blogs are called. So I'm going to go to our localhost admin, log in with our PayloadCMS demo account, do posts, and so we have all of these as slugs. So we'll do just test 3 to try it out. So nothing shows up, but we do see here in our console eventually we have, we're logging our blog, which we see just an error. So here we need to set this to be an async function, and this needs to await query blog. So that's first. Now, why is this still an error? So we see that the document, I guess, object is there, but since we're not getting the correct slug, maybe I need to set this to be slug. Type string is not assignable to type where. So maybe I need to set this back to be slug. And see here, this is where I need that that old project, how we did this before. So if I do this, nothing will happen. Oh no, because I see all of our docs instead. But only one is returned because I set a limit to 1 here. So what this result is doing is it's setting, it's searching all of my posts where the slug, whatever I need that query to be, and then a limit of 1 is being returned with a depth of 1. So it's only hydrating, for lack of a better word, 1 level of relationship. And then override access means that I'm able to access what I need to without any problems. So, yeah, I didn't think that was going to be a problem. Okay, const blog. So here, we're just going to set const slug to be params dot slug. And then if we log slug, make sure that we're getting what we think we're getting. So we see test 3. So that means that we're getting an array back. Totally fine. But it does mean that we need to do params slug and set that to be the first index coming back. So we do see test 3 right there. Oh, so I need to await params. It says use params.slug. Params should be awaited before using its property. Is that not what I'm doing? I'm getting something out of it. So here, oh, query blog, I need to await. No? What is, well, await has no effect there, so I get that. So then I need to do slug, but since this needs to be, its type of string is not assignable to parameter of type, slug where, I need this to be slug equals slug, which that is clearly wrong. Okay, that's something. There we go. Alright, so this is kind of ugly, but that's all right. I could set that as a variable instead, so I could do something like const blog query is equal to, do slug equals slug 0, and then instead of all of that junk, put in blog query, and that should still work, where if I log our blog, and that way it's just not as ugly. Now here I still get an error on the route that says params.slug, which I'm not actually using. It says params should be awaited before using its properties. So here, let's go look at our other project real quick, or actually let's just look at our local history for this file. Because if we go back early enough, which shouldn't be too much earlier, I guess right here. If we come down to our beginning here, we have page equals params.slug. So I wonder actually why I'm having to do this like I am. Why is that there? Because I see right here that we have the same type props params slug. That's generate metadata. And here I see export default async function, params props const page. So I think we're okay because this has worked before. All right, so let's move on. So now we have seen our project here. So we have our link. We have if it's featured, it's published. We have our created at and updated at. And here we can start returning some stuff. So now that we have our data, we can just set this to be article because we want to be semantic and our HTML, and this is going to be a blog article. And then just to get some stuff on the front end, we're going to set an H1 of our title. So here we can do, we'll do log.docs0 title. And then we can start there. If I refresh, I see test3 as my title. And so say I want to include our date. So I'm just going to do a paragraph, and we're just going to set it to be blog.docs0. I should have a date field, but I don't for this blog. So what I'm going to do is just use updated at for now, and then come over here to test3 and add a date. There's going to be a couple things I need to add here. So let's add test description. We'll add a summary. This is some rich text, so I can test this as well. And we'll just add some formatting, just so we're able to see this as well. Oops. And then we'll leave the authors the same. There's no category. I don't want to include any of that. We'll just choose a regular live thumbnail with the date 15th. And then we have our link there, and then if I come over to SEO, I can auto-generate the title, the image, the description. I don't need to do anything with the canonical, because what should happen, that does not get added, but I will work on that later. So now we have a little bit of a fuller API. So if I hit save to refresh it, or I guess I can refresh this one. All right, so I see our date here, but then I also see a few more fields included here, which are mostly going to be in content. So let's do some destructuring here. First, I want to get our, let's set this blog to actually be our response. And we're going to set our blog to be response.docs0. And so now, when I get rid of these, it shouldn't change anything. If I refresh, nothing breaks. And we come down here to our blog, and we want to return our content and our meta. And we'll set that to be equal to blog. And now, we'll set a div, and we will take our content. That's not going to do anything, but I'm going to log our content so we're able to see what we're working with again. So a lot of this is just working down our list to see what we have available to us, and then structuring and restructuring to make sure we can see what we have available to us. So I see we have a description and a summary. So if we want to, we can add a summary. Import summary from, that should be good. I don't know if this is actually the right block, so we'll do summary block instead. And then here we should be able to do content.summary, which we cannot. Which tells me that this is the wrong one. So if I do summary now, oops, summary. Got an object. Content summary should be correct. So let's just try this out real quick and do just a paragraph tag. And we see our test description there and our summary. And so we'll set this to also, it says it's potentially undefined, so we can set that and then do content, whoops. Delete all that and do content.summary. And that should actually be able to get rid of this. So now if it exists, it can render our summary there. So now I would like to see why, though, our summary block didn't work. So I need to go and look and see what blocks we have. We come all the way down to our summary, which is looking for a few things, which is a header section, a summary, and is active. So is header section required? We're going to make it not required. And we're going to do header section. There we go. So then we should be able to come back here. And this is summary, so should be able to do summary. And then the summary field is equal to this. And get rid of all of that. So export default function summary can't be used as a JSX. Let's see what happens. So it errors out. Expected a string for built-in components or a class function for composite functions, but got object. So it's definitely sending a string. We saw that happening. If we click on the summary, okay, so there's the problem. So we need to come up here and import summary. And that's going to be from our app blocks summary. So it's a default, which then means, all right, so it's in. Now what is it missing? Property active is missing in type, so we'll just do active equals true. So there we go. That was a whole long way of doing nothing. But we do see that we have our test description there, and we can actually go in. And if there is no header section, we could do, if no header section, then do an H2, and we can just write summary, if I could type. And let that take up some space there. Perfect. And if we wanted to edit that, we could, but let's take a look at our header section to see. Nope, so that's what it's supposed to look like. We are good to go. Oh, I can still do class name, classes, that summary header. Doing that, we have our summary in place. And we can keep looking through what we have available to us. So we have our content. So I'm going to use this as a sidebar. So let's do sidebar, and we'll come back to this because I want to put more stuff in there, like the date. That's not what I meant to do. So if we come down here, we'll add blog.date. And that date's not very user readable. So we're going to adjust that here in a second too, which I think I can just do format date. And then, or empty string. Close enough. What if I do, I have general date as well. Date, class name. I think this is actually a field. Date, general date, dates required, include time, false. I don't need anything like that, so that I can just do my blog.date. What did I do? Oh, I need to close that. There we go. So now it's human readable, and I can explain what I did in that component, but it's really just a helper function that formats the date for me, so I don't have to worry about it. All right, so we've got our date, we've got our summary. The description is going to be for any featured blog, so it's not actually going to go on here. And then we're going to go down one more and do our main portion, which is going to be the actual content. So we'll do serialized lexical, we'll do nodes, and then we're going to do our rich text, content.richtext.root.children. I think that's enough. And then self-closing. And that's going to show here. And so now what I'd like to do is in this article, we're going to do our section container. And then within that section container, we'll have a content container, which is making me feel less good about our summary block. But there's a different way to do this. So we'll do another here, do content container, just to make things match a little bit more with what we have going on everywhere else. So what happens when we refresh? Nothing, because that's just going to set the max width. So for summary, if we're not going to use this anywhere else but here, I can actually just set this down to grid. Okay, so section container should not be there. So what we'll do is we'll apply some padding here, but we'll work on that when we get to our, I see this down here is not working like I want it to, but we can get back to that when we get to like actually styling what we're doing. So right now we're just trying to get information out. So what else are we missing? Our authors field. So that can also go into our sidebar div. So actually this is going to be an aside. Again, semantic. So we'll do authors. And so here we could even do a little bit more restructuring. So I'm going to do authors. Really, can I do title, date, summary as well, and do what's content, property authors does not exist on type, but it's there. So let's take a look real quick. Content. Maybe I'm just not using it. So if I take this, does it work? No. All right, so I'm not going to do structure anymore. So we'll take down here and we'll do, we're actually going to need to do content.authors.map. And we're going to have our author, our author, and we'll keep the index just because it's asking me to. And then just to get the name out, we'll do author dot name. And so the reason we need to map this out is that we have the ability to have multiple authors. But right now, we can just have, we gotta wrap it in brackets for this. Author name. All right, so here we need to do type of author does not equal string. And if that's the case, then we can access our author name again. And so I would be able to add a link to this if I were to do something like link and then do href, and we could do type of author does not equal string and do something like author dot, I should have a slug, and then if all of that doesn't work out, empty string, totally fine. So now this is a link that links over to my author page, which does not exist, so that's not going to do anything. But for now, we'll leave this as a link because we may want to build that authors page, which will really just be a users page. So we'll leave authors, that's fine with me, and we have author name that's showing up. What else do we have to look at? Don't really care about the email. Is author doesn't really matter because it's obviously there. We could include a post count if we wanted to. So sure, why not? So let's just add it to the end here. We can do, again, type of author. The type checks really get to me, but they are extremely helpful when it comes to build time, so I will put up with it. Author, not author dot post count. And then we should see that show up there at the end. If we wanted to make this a little bit more clear. There we go. So I don't know if we'll keep that. Maybe I could do something even more clear. Do number of posts. Whatever. I'm probably not going to keep this in here. I'm just showing you what's possible. All right, so we have all of that, and then there's media, which we're not going to include anything there, and then we have our image. So here we're going to have our featured image, which we'll just put at the top under our title, and do so actually the aside will be there, and then under main we'll put, we got our title, we got our serialized lexical, and then we're going to have an image object, which is going to have our content.image. I don't know why I'm still getting this error. So weird, but if I do content.image, and featured image is always going to be something that I have, so we'll need to make sure that that stays. And this is looking good. So we have down here we can have our rich text HTML as well, which I could use. You can even see some styling in there, which is great. So I want to add a little bit more there so I have something else to work with. So I'm just going to go to a lorem ipsum generator and just I don't care why. I just want to generate. Oh, here it is. Okay. We'll do 5 paragraphs worth. That's plenty. And then we're going to add that over here to our rich text and save. And then when I come here, okay, so we already see that that's going to be too big. But then we refresh and we have all this lorem ipsum. And so we're not seeing anything in between, so we want to add some space in between each one. Which that actually didn't do anything either. So that means that we'll need to fix something in our height here. So we have all of these spans that have no margin, which actually is going to be the paragraphs that don't have any margin. So we have all of the data that we want to use showing up, which means then we can get rid of this log. And then we can, just like we did with the front end, come here and have, starting from the top, we'll do our 1-column view, which, again, I think that our title should be above all of this. We'll figure out how to do this better, I think, because the title I would like to be included in the main. So what if we did this, move this up and over, and let all the aside stuff go down to the bottom. Or no, because that'll make it like any longer title. I was going to put it into the sidebar, but any longer title would make that wrap way too much. So I'm not going to do that. So we'll mess around with it. This is fine for now. So here we want to start styling. So we're in our slug, we're in our pages. We can get rid of all of this, maybe not all of it. We can get rid of all of these. And then let's see what we have. We're going to have our class name. We'll do classes.main. We'll have classes.blog title. Class name, classes.blog image. Oops. Class name, classes.blog content. We will have classes.sidebar. We'll do a div down here. We'll do class name, classes.blog authors. And I don't need to put the blog at the end of, or for each of these, but it's just going to help me, I think. Blog author link. Last name, blog date. Then we don't have a class for summary, but I think we're okay. So I'm just going to take all of these classes, which should be all of that. We'll copy it. We'll come over here. We'll paste it. And we're going to do that. And now we have everything. So our main we will leave as it is for now, but our blog title needs some margin bottom. And we'll just put 1 rem for now, which should push it down enough. What is this error? Oh, I didn't put a key prop for. See, I always know. Key should be author.id. We'll do type type of author is not equal to string and author ID. Why is key type string false is not assignable? All right, so what we'll do instead is that we have our index that it brought in, so we can just use that. All right, so we got our margin bottom just like we want. We need margin bottom for our image as well, so we'll just do 1 rem. And so here in our blog content, we've got all of these paragraph tags that don't have any margin bottom. So we'll do a small margin bottom just to give it a little more separation. That's probably not quite enough. Still not enough, I don't think. There we go. That looks a little bit more readable. And then our sidebar, we'll do, for the small screen at least, we'll do a margin top of 1 rem to give it a little bit of separation at the top. Our blog authors, we'll do margin bottom of 1 rem. Separate from the date. And then I'm wondering for blog date and blog author. No, I was gonna say we should put it into. No, we should. We're gonna put it into its own div. So the date and the authors, and then this way we can group them together into a flex box. So we'll do classes dot blog. We'll say meta. That's not quite right. It's blog blog info. That works. All right. So we come back over to our page and we can do our blog info. Oh, we just heard this song. Let's skip that. There we go. So blog info is going to be a smaller screen size, display flex. We'll justify content space between. We probably have to align items center as well. Weird that align center actually made it worse. Oh, I think it's because there's a margin bottom just on our blog authors, which there is. So we're going to put that onto our blog info instead. We do that. That looks nice. And then the summary block needs to be at the top. So here's where things get interesting. So the aside does need to be up here. So we have the sidebar. But then the title needs to be above the summary, which means that it needs to be outside of the flow of the main, and it's going to be outside of the flow of the aside as well. Which maybe then I just need to try and get the title into the aside instead. We'll try it out. In my mind it should work, but we'll see. This is why you should design things before you start trying stuff out, because then you don't, it's hard to code and design at the same time, if we're honest. So sidebar doesn't need margin top anymore, because that's helped with the header. But our summary block, or our sidebar, does need margin bottom 1 rem. Oh, margin bottom. I swear I typed that in. Bottom. Clearly not, though. All right, great. So there's our blog post. And then we're going to get this up and over a little bit. So summary breaks there. But that's a little early to be into our sidebar, I think. So we may change how the summary goes. This still looks good for the blog. The image we're going to want to set a max width of a little bit earlier, so, or maybe we won't. So this is probably where we'll want to do our sidebar. So, or roughly around here. So where does summary actually go? So this may actually, no, that would be too early. So let's give it a shot here. So we've got our main, which is not what we're looking for. So we actually need to put these into their own div. Unless, actually, does content container have a class name? Oh, it does. Look at me. This is .blog container. And then if I come over here, do blog container. And we're going to do at our, include mid break probably. We can do display flex. Okay, so not our mid break. We need it to be our medium small break. So there's gonna be a lot of things that happen here. Like summary definitely needs to change. But overall, this looks, I mean, it's rough. We need to fix a few things here. The sidebar could be a little bit larger. So if we do our medium small break, I wonder how this set its width. And we're probably going to actually get rid of the summary block and just redesign it. But we'll get there in just a second. So sidebar, we're going to set your, not width. We don't want to set width. We want to do our flex and set you to be 1 and like 30%. Well, let's do calc. 30% minus 1 rem, because we're going to have our normal gap 1 rem. And then we want to go down to our main is what it is. Yep. And we'll do the same thing. We'll do our flex 1 and we'll do calc 70% minus 1 rem. All right, so it feels a little bit better. We probably don't even want this to be a content container. So let's set this to be, so we'll set this to actually be article, and we'll just set this to be, no, because this is article, so this is still just a div, but we get rid of the max width and we let it take up a little bit more space. Yeah, because we'll want more space there, but with the block container, we do want to still set a max width, but it'll probably be something like, I don't know what 48 rem is, but it's probably less. Yeah, it is way less. And then also margin, right auto, margin, left auto. Probably 1440 pixel. A little bit more than 1440, I think. We'll do 1600. Yeah, it feels better. Okay, so let's redesign this summary block a little bit. So yeah, instead of trying to redo all of that, I'm just going to do div class name and classes summary and just move it. It just makes more sense this way. And do we can do an H2. We can do oh, we don't even need the H2. We don't need to include summary at all, but we can do content.summary. And just since it can be undefined, we'll still do the content summary. And so if it's not there, great. If it is there, great. So then we will set that so it changes everything. Come over here and we'll do, in our sidebar, we have our summary. And we'll do background, color, brand, light green. Do padding. And then include rounded, which is not included, which means I need to do, duplicate that, bring in our variables. So why didn't our brand, oh, because it's now brand primary, light primary. Perfect. So this is feeling a little tight still. Let's have this actually happen at, no, I think it's fine. I think this just needs to change. So at our blog info, we can do include our medium small break and have it be flex direction column. See what that looks like. And we can do justify content flex start. Oh wait, align content or line items, because that's what's happening right there. Perfect. So that does look better, and I think all of that looks okay. And then we could even, for the sidebar, set the position. Let's do it here. Is it this or is it our... Yeah, let's try it. Side, we can set our position to sticky. So as I scroll down, let's do top 0. I never remember how to do this either. I think the problem is that the aside has a, yeah, it looks like it has a height. And so I need to include all of these in their own div in order for this to work. So no biggie. We'll do that. The aside is what I actually want it to be though here. So we want this to be its own div, which this is probably going to be the actual class name, classes sidebar. And we'll do sidebar container here. Okay, so sidebar container, we can do at include medium small break. We'll do position sticky. We'll do top of 0 just to see it. Okay, too many changes, I guess. There we go. All right, so that's still not working. Block container, we need our side. Oh. So now that it's in a container, this should work. Yep, there we go. Looks perfect. So now I'll have a summary, which the text could be much smaller. So font size, we'll do something like 0.8 rem. So font size, so it's being written somewhere else, which means that I need, oh, nope, okay, so in summary though. All right. So we'll set the summary paragraph tag to be font size 0.8 rem. There we go. Now that's way too small. We can do 0.9. Perfect. Okay, so not quite perfect actually. So you need to come up here, and we need to put you into a sidebar container. Now that loads up. We have our 30% again, and it takes up to 30% of the screen, which is too much at bigger screen sizes. So if we go and we do our mid break, probably. So mid break is going to come down, and we'll set the flex basis, because that's the only thing we're changing, and we'll change it to be maybe like 20% minus 1 rem to account for that gap. Okay, so mid is actually pretty quick after that one, so we can set it to be our large break. And so that looks okay. Perfect. So that image is still huge though, so we'll fix that. Okay, and the date's a little big as well. So we'll set blog date to be our font size. Not 0.8, we'll put it to 1. And honestly, the paragraph size here should also just be 1. Perfect. So now we have a summary, which we're going to include a header because it doesn't quite look right without it. So if I add summary, class name, classes, we'll do summary header. Yeah, we can come to here and do summary header. Do font size 1.2, which looks great to me. Perfect. So we've got our title, we've got our author that links to an author's page, we have the date, which then collapses there, and at the large screen size or actually even at the large, or the mid break, which is still in here for some reason, medium, small break. Oh no, it is just a large break. We can set our large break here and have it set back to flex direction row with our line items center. All looks good there. All in line, perfect. Keep opening it up. I think we could use a bigger gap at our, I think we could just use a bigger gap in general. So I'm gonna do 2, and set these to also be 2. And then at include large break, you will have a flex basis of, I guess, what was it, 80%? Not 90%. That's definitely not right. Yep, 80%. And still the image is going to be too big, in my opinion, so we'll fix that. So looks good, all looks good. So that image just, yeah, it gets so huge. So let's fix the image. What we'll do, like maybe a max width, sure, whatever that's gonna be. Margin left auto, margin right auto. So maybe a little bit bigger than that. So, not double, but we definitely don't want it to be the width of the text on most screens. Okay, I don't know why it didn't scale. Maybe I have to do width of 100%. I do. So, there we go. So now that makes the text feel long. So what we'll do is we'll set the aside to be not 40. 30 still feels, Let's see, if we get rid of that. Get rid of that. And so it's always going to take up 30% of the screen. This just feels like a lot of white space on this side, so while it's cool, don't think it's necessary. So maybe instead of having margin center, we could do, let it stay laid out here, let it expand, and then stop expanding. So now, if I scroll down, even this feels a little wide for the content. So we will just take the content down, do maybe 60%. Yeah. That feels okay with me. Then we've got our title, our author, our date, and the summary for it. And most screens, it's going to take up full screen, so I'm cool with that as well. So that's it. That is a blog. So now I could go and do, this is a test title. Hit save. That shouldn't change the slug, but we're going to make sure. Yep, so test 3 is still it. And we're going to come down. We're going to take this test blog here, which has some information, but let's give it a little bit more. Come here. Just to make sure our stuff still works, we're going to add a little bit of styling. Then we have our authors. We will need to add categories. So let's do that under, we'll do it under the date. We're not going to do it right now, but yes, categories, content. And then we're going to change the test blog to be, let's see here. What should this be? It doesn't really matter. So we'll do lorem ipsum dolor sit mit. And then we need to change the slug for this one, where we're just going to set it to be lorem ipsum because I don't want to have to spell all of it. So then we have our date. We don't want to feature the post. We can come over to our SEO, auto-generate the title. The image is already there, the description. And the canonical is going to need to change, but that's okay. If I come here, we take from test 3. Well, first, actually, let's refresh test 3. This is the test title. That looks good. It even looks good at smaller sizes, which is great. I like that. And especially since it scrolls down, that's perfect. And then it looks great there. So we could even add a little bit of a background to that, but we'll think about that later. But now if we want to do our lorem ipsum, I chose the hardest title for this. So we have the title there, it's a little bit longer. We see that we have posts 2 here, December 8th. This article is about birds, apparently. So that looks good too. So we have blogs working, which is great. They're styled perfect, and this is a great place to stop. So yeah, we covered quite a bit with this, which was really just rendering stuff on the front end, which is, I mean, most of the battle. So like we made up this whole backend system. And yes, we see a couple errors here. If I bring this back, like this image is a problem, which I think this is just something that I made a little too difficult, because type undefined is not assignable to type image object. So I wonder actually if this is what always happens to me. It's like we start working on this and then I just can't stop. So for some reason, yeah, it's just not going to work like I want it to. So I'm not going to work too hard on this. What I'll end up doing is changing the type, honestly, because there's no reason that this shouldn't be working that I can think of. But anyway, yes, we worked on getting our blog to be fully functional on the front end, which is perfect. We have somewhat styled it, which is great since we have our global styles and our variables, so really easy to just drag and drop those in, or really not drag and drop, but you know what I mean. And then we put in an image and constrained its height and width, and even adjusted some text for the texts. So if we look back at what we have left to do, which is somewhere in all of this stuff, we built out the blog on the front end. We're still not going to do the contact form yet, but what we need to do next is build out main blog page, which is going to be /blog, because we finished what the blog is going to look like on narrow and wide screens, but we need to figure out how they're going to be presented in a collection form. So we'll work on that. The contact form can wait because we have a few things that we need to work on with that. But yes, we've got quite a bit done. We've got quite a while to go. And I want to thank you guys for joining me on this video. If you liked it, go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you want me to work on. I don't have to do what I'm doing. This is just a way for me to not only talk out how to program and do web development and all that, but to think through new ways of how to do things. So I'm open to ideas. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Does this make sense? Do you have any questions? Drop those in the comments. Any new topics, drop those in the comments. I have a ton of new PayloadCMS content coming out soon, and I'd love for you guys to see that. Leave comments on it and just help me develop better PayloadCMS content for you guys. So for now, go ahead, subscribe, like the content, hit the notification bell to make sure you get notifications for whenever I go live or drop a new video. And that's it. I'll see you guys on the next one.